The courtroom was silent, but not the normal kind of quiet. This was heavier. Tense. The kind that made your chest feel tight without warning. Officer Daniel stood near the front, one hand resting on Atlas' leash, his posture firm but his mind unsettled. Across the room, a homeless man sat in chains. Thin. Calm. Almost too calm. Beside him sat his dog, unchained, unmoving, and strangely composed. That alone didn't make sense. Animals weren't allowed in courtrooms, especially not strays. But today was different. Today, the judge had approved a final request. Tell us where you're watching from and the name of your dog for a shout-out in the next video. The man leaned forward slightly, his voice low but clear. He said he didn't want a lawyer. He didn't want to speak. Then he turned his head slowly and looked directly at Daniel. He said he only wanted one thing, Daniel's dog. A ripple of confusion spread through the courtroom. Daniel frowned immediately, rejecting the idea before it could settle. But the judge overruled him. The request stood. Reluctantly, Daniel loosened his grip on the leash. Atlas stepped forward. Then stopped. Completely. His body stiffened, every muscle locking in place. A low growl escaped his throat, deep and controlled. Then, slowly, he stepped back. Away from the man. Away from the request. This wasn't fear. This wasn't hesitation. It was recognition. Daniel felt it instantly, and it unsettled him more than anything else. Atlas had only reacted like this once before, when facing someone hiding something dangerous. But the man didn't react. He just smiled. Slowly. Calmly. Like he had been expecting this exact moment. Then he whispered something that made Daniel's grip tighten without thinking. Good, you remember. What happened next didn't just change the case, it changed everything they thought they understood. The courtroom lights buzzed faintly overhead as rain tapped softly against the tall glass windows. Everything felt controlled on the surface, but beneath it, tension was building. Daniel could feel it rising. Atlas had shifted closer to him now, not scanning the room like he normally would. Instead, he kept his eyes locked on the man. Watching every movement. Every breath. The homeless man, meanwhile, sat completely relaxed, despite the chains around his wrists. His posture was straight. Composed. Like he didn't belong in this situation at all. What unsettled Daniel even more was the other dog. It didn't react. Didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. That wasn't normal. Dogs always reacted unless they were trained not to. The case itself had started 3 weeks earlier with a warehouse fire on the edge of the city. It had been ruled accidental, faulty wiring, poor maintenance. Simple. Clean. But Atlas hadn't agreed. The moment they entered the burned structure, Atlas ignored everything investigators focused on. He went straight to a single spot and refused to move. That was enough for Daniel. When Atlas locked onto something, it mattered. They dug. What they found wasn't a body. It was a sealed metal container buried beneath ash. Inside were documents, names, dates, coordinates. It didn't make sense at first. But it was enough to open a deeper investigation. And that investigation led to one person. A man with no identity. No records. No past. Just a presence. Seen near the warehouse before the fire. Watching. Waiting. And now, he was here. In chains. Requesting a dog. Officer, the judge said firmly, pulling Daniel back into the present. Daniel gave the command. Atlas, go. But Atlas didn't move. Instead, he stepped in front of Daniel, blocking him. Protective. Intentional. The room shifted uncomfortably. Daniel tried again. Nothing. Then the man spoke again, softly, almost casually. He suggested Daniel try using the dog's old name. Daniel froze. The air in the room changed instantly. Atlas wasn't his first name. That wasn't public information. That wasn't in any file or report. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest as he stared at the man. Still, almost against his will, he said it. Rex. The reaction was immediate. Atlas flinched physically, like the word struck something deep inside him. He turned sharply toward Daniel, confusion flashing across his eyes before shifting back to the man. Then something changed. The growling stopped. A soft whimper replaced it. And slowly, cautiously, Atlas stepped forward. The courtroom leaned in. Watching. Waiting. Atlas reached the man and lowered his head, not in submission, not in fear, but in recognition. Daniel's chest tightened. This wasn't possible. He had worked with Atlas for 2 years. The dog had been trained, cleared, assigned. No past connections. No history like this. So how did this man know him? Who are you? Daniel demanded. The man didn't answer directly. Instead, he leaned closer to Atlas and whispered something too quiet for anyone else to hear. Atlas's ears twitched slightly, and then suddenly, he stepped back and barked loud, sharp, aggressive. Not at the man. At Daniel. The courtroom erupted into murmurs. Confusion spread quickly. Daniel's mind raced. Nothing about this was right. Answer me, he pressed. How do you know this dog? The man leaned back calmly, his voice steady. He said he didn't know Daniel's dog, but he knew what the dog had been trained to forget. The words hit harder than expected. Something shifted in Daniel's mind. A memory, faint and unclear, pushed its way forward. A training facility. Voices raised in argument. Atlas, no, Rex, barking aggressively at someone. Then a sharp command. Silence. Daniel blinked, pulling himself back to reality. You were there, the man said. Daniel shook his head immediately, but doubt had already taken root. The man continued, revealing just enough to destabilize everything. He mentioned the container found in the fire. Said it wasn't evidence, it was insurance. Insurance for when they decided to erase them. Us. That word lingered. Before Daniel could respond, Atlas moved again. This time, he returned to the smaller dog, sniffing more aggressively. Focused. Intent. Then he began pawing at the dog's side. Not random. Deliberate. Daniel stepped forward slowly and reached down, parting the fur carefully. That's when he saw it. A thin, perfectly clean surgical scar. Too precise to be accidental. And suddenly, everything connected. This isn't a stray, Daniel whispered. The man gave a faint smile. No. A pause. He's a carrier. Daniel's pulse spiked. A carrier of what? But the man didn't answer directly. Instead, he told Daniel to ask his department. Said they had trained the dog to detect it but not understand it. Then he added one final line that chilled Daniel completely. It's already inside the system. At that exact moment, Atlas barked again, louder, more urgent than before. The smaller dog flinched violently and then collapsed. Right there in the courtroom. Chaos erupted instantly. Guards rushed forward. People shouted. The judge demanded order. But Daniel didn't move. Because Atlas didn't move. He just stood there. Frozen. Staring at the collapsed dog. Then slowly, Atlas turned his head. Looking up at Daniel. Not with confusion. Not with fear. But with recognition. Daniel's radio crackled suddenly, the voice on the other end urgent and panicked. Reports were coming in, multiple K9 units collapsing across the city. The order was clear. Isolate your dog. Immediately. Daniel's grip tightened on the leash. Too late. Atlas had already taken a step back. Away from him. And for the first time since they met, Atlas looked at Daniel like he was the threat.